Is your spouse acting cold and distant towards you? Like almost as if they're constantly thinking about something else? Do they often check out or refuse to talk about what's bothering them? Do they get defensive when you ask why the intimacy has left your marriage? Do you sometimes feel like you're alone in your relationship and it's scaring you? Well, if you answered yes to any of those questions, then you may be feeling like your spouse doesn't care about you or that they're no longer happy in your marriage. In situations like this, it's easy to feel like your relationship is falling apart. But is this really the case, or does your spouse just need some time, space, or something different altogether? My name is Brad Browning, and today I'm going to share with you tips on what to do when your spouse acts cold or distant towards you. Now, as a relationship coach and marriage expert, I deal with these kinds of problems all the time. And if you're feeling at fault for your spouse's behavior, or you're regretting some of your actions, don't worry, you're not alone and I can help you. So, without delay, here are 10 things you can do when your spouse acts coldly or becomes distant. Number 1, respect your spouse's differences. So when you and your partner first got together, you both had different ideas, stories, opinions, and interests. However, it's likely that, over the years, some of your differences and opinions changed to form common likes, dislikes, and outlooks. For example, maybe you both started liking the same foods and picked up the same hobbies. Now, while some of your common interests may be permanent, it's possible that as time goes on, you and your spouse will form new opinions that will create new differences. Now, although we sometimes may forget, relationships require a profound respect for each other's differences. It's equally as important to note that having differences doesn't mean that one person is right and the other is wrong. If your spouse is acting distant, make an effort to respect their differences. Debating opinions is only going to push them further away, and you don't want to make them feel attacked. So instead, celebrate your differences and accept that their opinions are what makes your spouse who they are. After all, they do say that opposites attract, right? Number 2, don't take it personally. Now, it's important to understand that your spouse's need for privacy or space may not be about you. In other words, just don't take it personally. Your spouse may be going through a phase that requires alone time, or perhaps, they're battling inner demons. Whatever the case, realize that it's easier to calmly invite closeness rather than angrily demand it. If your spouse is willing to share their feelings with you, be committed to talking through their issues sensibly. Ask the tough questions and never make their problems about you. It'll be a lot tougher to help your spouse out of their protective shell if you're self-centered and inconsiderate. Number 3, call off the pursuit. Now, oftentimes when a partner is upset by their spouse's cold or distant behavior, they'll go into pursuit mode. Now, unfortunately, this really only makes the situation worse. If you chase your spouse at times that they've made it clear that they want their space, chances are they're only going to distance themselves further. So instead, respect that your spouse needs some time alone and don't pursue them. Now, I know this can be tough to do, especially if you're concerned about what's going on. But as tough as it may be, the best thing you can do is stay positive and have faith that when they're ready to talk, they'll come to you. Now, if you guys have any questions about pursuing your spouse, feel free to post them in the comments section below this video. I also offer one-on-one marriage coaching to a limited number of clients. So if that's something you may be interested in, just visit marriageguy.com/coaching to sign up today. And moving on to number 4, lower your intensity. So similar to calling off pursuit mode that we talked about earlier, lowering your intensity is about being calm and patient with your spouse. So if you're usually a loud, fast-paced person with a habit of over-talking or giving unwanted advice, then you really need to just slow down. Now, this doesn't mean that your spouse's behavior is your fault, but simply that big personalities may not be the cure for a cold behavior. There are certain types of people that don't respond well to this kind of high energy, and your powerful personality could be why they're striding away from the relationship. So toning down your charisma can help your spouse feel more at ease and more relaxed. Number 5, give them space. So if you're in the habit of always being at your spouse's heels, then it's time to back off. Hovering over your spouse or vocalizing your opinions about how they're going about their routines can become claustrophobic. So to avoid suffocating them, make an effort to stay out of their zone, bite your tongue, and simply let them be. If your spouse has made it clear that they need space, then you have to respect their wishes. People who act distant open up, most freely when they aren't being pursued by their partner. So if you want to support your spouse, then it's best to let them have their time. This is a perfect example of an instance where less is more. And on to number 6, Make a date, not a diagnosis. So if you find that your spouse is acting distant and you'd like to reconnect, suggest an activity to do together. Plan a few dates and put each other into your schedules. The best way to reestablish an emotional connection is by making your relationship a priority and spending quality time together. No matter how frustrated you may become with your spouse's behavior, remember that they will respond better to positivity than to scrutiny. In fact, diagnosing their behavior will only make things worse. So avoid saying things like, "You've shut down," or "We don't talk much anymore." And instead of talking about not talking, just actually talk. Not only will it save you an uncomfortable conversation, but it's also a lot more productive. And number 7, pursue your goals, not your partner. Now, it's easy to become overbearing when your spouse is acting distant. And this is why it's so important to focus on you while they focus on them. So think about what hobbies or projects you've been wanting to take up and just do them. Set some personal goals and tackle them. Now is a great time to focus on the things that you want to do, and it's also the best remedy for getting overly focused on your partner. Now, as part of your you time, make a point to lean on friends and family members for an outlet to rant. Not only will talking about the situation help you to cope with it, but it'll also help you avoid unleashing any kind of bottled up emotions onto your spouse. Number 8, act kindly. Now, just because your spouse has become distant or cold doesn't mean that you need to back off completely. Of course, like I said, you shouldn't aggressively chase your partner, but you can act kindly and do little things to make them feel loved. Now, I realize this may not be a revolutionary idea, but it can have that kind of effect on your marriage. In fact, a recent study by the Gottman Institute revealed that kindness is the single most important quality that a person can have when it comes to maintaining a loving, healthy marriage. So if your spouse is acting coldly, then they could probably use a little pick-me-up, whether they know it or not. So praise your spouse every chance you get and avoid criticizing. Be considerate of their feelings and go the extra mile to make them smile. These small gestures of warmth will really go a long way towards renewing your bond with one another. Number 9, love unconditionally. Now, you cannot control your spouse's behavior, but you can control your own. Regardless of how your spouse may be acting, you should always choose to treat them with love. Now, I realize this isn't easy to do when your partner's not reciprocating, but it's what you agreed to when you vowed to love each other for better or for worse. And besides, nothing breaks down emotional barriers like unconditional love. So accept that your spouse could be behaving this way for a number of reasons. Perhaps they're struggling with feelings of depression or lacking self-confidence. Maybe they're stressed with work or just feeling exhausted from day-to-day bickering. But no matter what the reason is, don't give up on them. And before I wrap this video up, I want to remind you that even the best marriages can go through phases where one spouse acts coldly or becomes distant. And when this happens, it's important to remain calm and pleasant. Don't push your spouse or demand an explanation. Just be there for them and do what you can to make the situation better for both of you. And that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it's given you some new ideas for dealing with your distant spouse. If you'd like to hear more about how to save your marriage, visit my website, marriageguy.com, for my full-length video presentation. And I appreciate all of you that have shown your support by subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already done so, please do. And until next time, take care, and as always, thanks for watching.